In one side of the ring is Jesus Christ Superstar, and in the other corner is Godspell. Who will win this fight? A few weeks ago, I listened to the cast album of the 2011 Broadway revival of Godspell, and I loved it. And I loved it so much that I've practically been listening to it on repeat ever since. And I listened to the album without ever seeing it. And so I really, really wanted to see it because I love the album. I really wanted to see the movie because I listened to the soundtrack a lot, and so I was like, oh, well, there's a movie version, and I know it's from the 1970s, but whatever, I'll still watch it. But it wasn't on Netflix instant viewing, and so I was like, oh, I'll just wait till I get home to watch it on DVD. So yesterday I got the DVD from Netflix in the mail, and then I watched it, of course, because that's what you do with DVDs. I grew up on Jesus Christ Superstar, so I was really interested in comparing Godspell, the movie, to Jesus Christ Superstar, the movie, and the way that it was portraying Jesus' life and everything like that. So just to start off with some background information, Godspell actually started off as a thesis project for the book writer of Godspell at Carnegie Mellon back in 1970. Then it was picked up and moved to off-Broadway in 1971, and then the movie was made in 1973. Godspell actually started off as a play with no music, but then, long story short, songs were added. And the music that was added was made by Stephen Schwartz, who made Wicked 30 years later. It's very interesting to look at the background information for Jesus Christ Superstar and Godspell because they are so remarkably similar. Jesus Christ Superstar started off as a concept album in 1970, and then it moved to Broadway in 1971, and then the movie was made in 1973, which is really weird. Godspell started off as a thesis project at Carnegie Mellon in 1970. Jesus Christ Superstar's concept album was in 1970. Godspell got off Broadway in 1971, and Jesus Christ Superstar was on Broadway in 1971. And then both movies were made in 1973. That is so weird. The music for Jesus Christ Superstar was made by Andrew Lloyd Webber. He is one of the biggest names in musical theater. He made things like Cats, Phantom of the Opera, Evita, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and a whole bunch of other award-winning things. When you watch both of these movies, you have to have a very open mind. If you don't have an open mind, you are going to easily rip these things apart, especially Godspell. Godspell's structure is very interesting and practically non-existent. The way that Godspell works is that there will be like a song and then a parable from the Bible and then another song and then a parable and a song and a parable. So it's back and forth, back and forth. And because of this, there's not really any story. Godspell takes place in New York City. The movie starts off showing busy New York City with all of its honking horns and all of the sound of the city and everything like that. The camera follows the characters that come up later in just their normal everyday setting. One's a taxi driver, one's a dancer, and then there's a couple other like random things. It's really interesting and very much a hippie movie, but it's really weird how they like get everyone together. And to be quite honest, I don't really understand how that happens. But they all come together in like a big dance number and they, symbolically get baptized in one of the fountains in Central Park. And then they all leave, and then Jesus comes hopping out, and he comes in, he goes in like the fountain basically, and he gets baptized too, which is kind of interesting if you think about it. In every scene from the movie, all of the characters are there. And from what I read on the Wikipedia page, when this is done on stage, everyone is on stage for the whole time, which is odd. So basically, it's these people who are followers of Christ, but not disciples. They're followers of Christ, and they go around and they hear his stories that he has to tell in these parables that he's, giving life lessons and moral lessons through. It's done in a vaudevillian way, according to the Wikipedia page, because that's, a reliable source. But it really is. It's a lot of miming and a lot of weird acting, but it works. There's not like a lot of talking. It's basically just the singing and then the parables. And then there's nothing else besides that. The parables are spoken, but there's songs and stuff, and it's just like there's no cohesiveness. I don't feel like there's any cohesiveness to this. I just think it's a really weird musical because there's no story to it. It's just, you have mini stories that are parables, and then you have the songs and the parable and the songs and parable, song parable, which is an odd combination. There's lots of dancing and randomness in this, and that could be boring. I mean, you have to be already in this mindset. Like, you have to be open-minded to this because, like I said, you could rip it apart if you go in closed-minded and thinking, oh, this is gonna suck. I would say that if you're gonna watch this, you should probably already love Jesus. Because if you're going to endure this movie, you should probably have an open mind when it comes to Jesus, when it comes to dancing and having musicals and things like that, because it's really interesting. And from a today's point of view, it's weird. From a 70s point of view, maybe it was less weird. I'm not too sure, but everyone was still on drugs at that point, so it might have made more sense. Some things that I really like about this movie and this musical in general, and that the most important one of those is the songs. The songs are fantastic. Now, I may disagree with how they actually put this thing together, but I mean, I respect it. I wouldn't change anything in it. It is what it is, and it is a respectable piece of art. There's a couple things that I dislike about this movie, and the most important one of those is that it's kind of a cultish vibe to it. It's making it look like Christianity is a cult. I have no idea whether that was on purpose or not. I think it probably wasn't, but it still is cultish. And I mean, the naysayers of Christianity would say, well, Christianity is a cult. And the naysayers of religion in general would say, religion is a cult. So, I mean, I guess you could say that, but when you think about Christianity as a whole, I wouldn't necessarily think it's a cult. I mean, there are some sects that are. I'm going to admit that. But I don't think it's right the way that this movie portrays Christianity necessarily. And I don't think that was intentional, but I think it might have been an accidental byproduct. The other thing that I really dislike about this movie is that it makes Jesus seem mean. There are some scenes where he snaps at his followers, and I don't think that's right. As far as I know, there's one scene in the Bible where Jesus blows up. And that's when people are using a temple as a marketplace. He gets furious and starts messing up everything because he's really mad that people are misusing the temple. Now, it's cool in the Bible that this is there because it shows that he's human. I mean, he's the Son of God, the Trinity and all that stuff, but he's still a human being. He's not a total God. I mean, he's, the Son of God and he's part of God and whatever, but he's also human. And I think that might be what they are trying to get to in Godspell when he snaps at people, but I don't know. It seems like when he's snapping at people, he's being condescending, and I dislike that. Again, I disagree. There's one scene where he slaps one of his followers, and I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know if he would actually do that. Because they mentioned the story where, if somebody slaps you, you turn the other cheek and then offer it to them, or something like that. And so they say that, and then he puts it in action, and I'm just like, I don't know about that. But it is what it is, and I respect it. Okay, so now for Jesus Christ Superstar. Jesus Christ Superstar has a story. It basically follows Christ's journey in the last parts of his life. Godspell takes place in modern times for 1973, and Jesus Christ Superstar takes place in an ancient/modern hybrid. In Jesus Christ Superstar, the people who surround him are his disciples and Mary Magdalene. So in Jesus Christ Superstar, you have the biblical figures, whereas in Godspell, you just have random people. Overall, I think Jesus Christ Superstar has better songs, and I think the film version of Jesus Christ Superstar has better singers, by far, than the film version of Godspell. I love Jesus Christ Superstar. I think it's one of the best musicals of all time, and I think the singers in there are fantastic. The songs are amazing, and I think Godspell is great too, but it doesn't quite match up to Jesus Christ Superstar. There's quite a lot of differences between Jesus Christ Superstar and Godspell, but there are also a lot of similarities. The first one, and most important one, is that they're both very hippie-ish. Godspell takes it very literally hippie with the flowers and the rainbow outfits and the weirdness. And Jesus Christ Superstar is hippie-ish, but not nearly as hippie-ish. But they still have the hippie vibe, and they have different kinds of music, but it's still obviously from 1970. Also, both have had numerous revivals. The weird thing with this is that for Godspell, I love the 2011 revival cast. It's amazing. But I think Jesus Christ Superstar is hard to revive because the movie cast was so incredible that it's hard to reach that bar. And people try to redo Jesus Christ Superstar and update it. So there's Jesus Christ Superstar 2000, and there's one from a year or two ago that had to do with homeless people or something. They try way too hard to make it different, and then it just screws it up because it loses its integrity. I love the Jesus Christ Superstar movie, and so it would be really, really hard for me to see it live anywhere because I would have such high expectations that I wouldn't be able to enjoy it. The thing about these movies is that they make Christianity accessible to the masses. Because really, you don't need to know who Jesus is in order to enjoy these movies. It might be helpful with Godspell because it's so out there that in order to keep going with it, you might want to like Jesus a lot. But it's not going to hurt your viewing experience if you don't know. You can still appreciate it for what it is. I just thought it would be really interesting to compare Jesus Christ Superstar and Godspell. Like, I love the music and I think they're awesome, and it's the very weird category of musicals that are religious. I really enjoy both of these musicals. I think that Jesus Christ Superstar wins out, but I think they're both enjoyable. I think everyone should see Jesus Christ Superstar. I think if you can tolerate Godspell, you should watch it. But like I say, go into these with an open mind, because if you go into there thinking, oh, this is going to be stupid, you're going to be able to rip it apart very easily. But if you go in there with an open mind, you'll be able to enjoy it. Thanks for watching this video. I appreciate it, and hopefully I'll have a lot more for you later.